Welcome to our Spotlight presentations session, right? So roughly 1 hour, we have 8 speakers, which translates to maybe 5 minutes or so for each talk and maybe one question after each talk. So we're having individual projects, some PhD students, but also postdocs in Terais, connected to Terais, from IIT and from Hamburg and from Bratislava. And we will start with Omar Eldar here. Right. Oh, I forgot to say that there are sort of 3 blocks. The first session is on first block on human awareness, referring to those 3 topics of Terais. The second block on explainability and block 3 on trustworthiness. So block 1, we're starting with Omar.
Okay. Before just to start, I would like to give a little bit of some introduction. So basically, I led the work package after Carlo. So most of the work here was actually on the main brain was Carlo. So firstly, I am just presenting some of his ideas and also his work. I was part of it, but it's his main mind with also all other colleagues that have been working on that. The other thing is also that this, let's say, research, it's just one part that I choose to present to actually give an example of how the research projects within Terais was actually managed between IIT, UCBA, and Wuhan. So let's go to the okay. So the question here, can a robot manage conversation effectively and seamlessly with multiple people? So imagine a scenario where the robot might be in this room or in other room with multiple people. So how does the robot will manage this kind of scenario? So this was the main kind of motivation or the thing that we try to achieve. And the idea that most of our interaction are actually with multiple people. So it's not really one-to-one. So yeah, we sometimes interact one-to-one communication, but most of our interaction in everyday life is actually multi-party or with multiple humans. And the idea that humans manage this with some sort of social in conversational scenario with some sort of social conversational compass, where it's not only about the message. So it's not like the communication with Alexa or chatting with the ChatGPT or with LLM. So it goes beyond that. The idea that if we actually give the robot some sort of social conversational compass with some sort of explainable behavior, this will lead to more trust and effective collaboration. And this approach is let's say, the main direction of the direction of the whole Terais project, as Igor presented a few minutes ago. So with this, imagine like this is most of the people that worked on this project. So with the multidisciplinary people, so some came from AI, cognitive science, and also psychology, to all come together in a sense that to actually make this happen. So the idea of collaborating with multidisciplinary in this kind of research is kind of essential. And thanks to everyone that was being there. And so let's go, what does mean beyond the message? Beyond the message, like for example, in the addressee estimation. So imagine you're in this scenario, 2 people are speaking to each other, but someone else came from behind. So we try to infer what the others, like who the other is speaking to whom. The other thing also is during the communication, some sort of how this conversation is conveyed or how this message is conveyed with the emotional understanding. Also, the use of audio. So this audio the spatial audio in the sense that to localize who's speaking using auditory channel. So the idea of multimodality and the biological inspiration is the main kind of two components that give us the inspiration on our approach. The idea is that we try to the model try to answer these kind of questions. So from the speaker, who is the speaking, and to the addressee, to whom the message is actually addressed, and what is the message and how it's conveyed. And this has visual components, audio components, and cognitive components. So this mainly the main idea that there is a complex architecture that I don't want really to go into deep about that, but this is the main idea with the coordination of the robot's action, that is basically at this moment gaze and also speech. This work, there were some parts that actually finished, and some Evita will also speak about some parts, and it's also ongoing work. So it's something that might go beyond this project, but because it's kind of a big research. And that's it. So thank you, and I'm happy for any questions if you have.
One question?
Ladies and gentlemen, one part of the Terais project was the legibility experiment, in which we studied how humans are able to predict robotic actions, and if we present them only partial, and we aim to make the robot movement more legible, we succeeded in developing necessary hardware, software, and methods for control of humanoid robot that was able to serve to such experiment. And then we studied how the robot movement influence performance of the experiment participant in the prediction. Our goal was to make the robot movements more legible. If you look to the left side, the robot is moving in such a way that it is very easy to control it, very easy to implement. However, on the right side, we have a more legible movement that is very difficult to control, but it is more suitable for building trust between a human and robot. For the experiment, we had to measure somehow legibility of the movement, and we express it as a difference between the robot's intentions and the participant predictions. We designed experiment schedule containing almost 200 interactions between human and the robot, organized in sections according different modes of movements and accompanied movements of the robot, like gaze and so. It was, for instance, this is one example. Robot is pointing to the start screen. The movement is stopped, and the participant provide prediction. We collected a lot of data, namely tabular videos and the also eye tracker data. And for the implementation of the experiment, we had to even improve a bit hardware of the robot because of some troubles that we encounter. We had to overcome them somehow, and and of course we had to develop the control software that integrates control of motors, facial expressions of the robot, speech synthesis, graphical user interface for the experimenter, and the logic of the experiment. We had to implement also methods. Mainly we have very big troubles to control the robot in a legible way that is giving chance to the participants to make a prediction. And for that we developed own method how to calculate the necessary poses of the robots. As a result, we analyzed the data and confirmed a few hypotheses about the influence of the movement to the participant performance. We published it, and of course we also collected a lot of interesting knowledge how to build legible robots. Our team was consisting of people from Comenius University and Italian Institute of Technology, and the last but not least member of our team was the robot Nico developed in Hamburg. Thank you. That's all.
I would presume that in some more the robot is behaving as a human, the more he should be intelligible. Is there any behavior when the robot is not behaving as a human, but it's for human easily recognizable?
Maybe even here it is we can discuss whether, because finally we as legible movement selected moving with finger on line, and this is question whether really people do this, but maybe do this if they want to be understood by other humans. Even that if I point and I am giving chance to everybody to understand where I am pointing. So from the engineering point of view, it's just okay. You have simply some shapes that are better, and in fact our method was oriented at how to specify shape of the movement and how to calculate all the poses of the robot, how to control it through time, and so on.
Can I have one more question?
I would like to ask, if you check right, like I'm interested in eyesight or acoustic eyes. There are some people that are visually impaired that then usually don't look at the object, but roughly around or behind. If you have tried such experiments.
Yes, of course. These sections of the experiment, one was with gaze neutral, one with gaze pointed to the spot, one to the wrong spot, for instance. And really the performance was going up if it is looking to the spot, and go down when it is looking to the wrong spot. Simply, but of course, also we found that people have some different strategies how to approach this problem. Somebody was simply making intersection between lines where the line of robot gaze and robot arm. Others were following only arm. This is really also people vary in how they perform the prediction. So,
thanks, Lee. And I think that closes our first human awareness block, and we go to the next block since the third speaker is missing today. So we go to right. So we have then Iveta Bekova and start of the explainability block.
Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Iveta Bečková, and I would like to present research that was done as a collaboration between Comenius University and Italian Institute of Technologies. And it's actually part of what Omar mentioned, like the larger research regarding human-robot interaction. Okay, the title of the presentation is quite long, so to maybe simplify it, I'm going to talk about robots in human-robot interaction, more specifically in multi-party interaction, and I'm going to talk about how we make the robots more explainable. So the focus of our research was addressee estimation, which is basically understanding in multi-party conversation who the speaker is talking to. So who is the addressee of the speech. This is important for a robot in interaction with humans, not only to understand if the robot is addressed, but if it's not addressed, then it's also important to understand who of the other parties involved is the addressee, so the robot can behave in a more smooth, human-like way, and therefore act in a more trustworthy way. So, for example, if the robot estimates the addressee correctly, it can, for example, turn towards the addressee or maybe expect that that's the person who's going to speak next in the interaction, and so on. So for our research, we used data in form of videos recorded from the robot's point of view. And what we did is, actually this is based on previous research by Matsula et al., where the videos are pre-processed to form kind of two separate so-called data streams. One of them is basically the faces of the speaker. So from the entire video, we just crop the image of the speaker's face. And the second data stream is based on running a software which automatically analyzes body poses in real time. So we have a sequence of the detected body poses of the speaker. In more detail, this is what our neural network looks like. So we have one data stream, the faces, which are at first processed separately. Then we have the body poses, which are again at first processed separately. And then these two are, okay, I'm not sure if this works. These two are merged together. And then in the last part, what we do is that we don't estimate the addressee in real time. We only do it at the end of the speaker's utterance. Because, for example, the speaker may turn at the end of the utterance, maybe they may be facing the addressee at the beginning and then turn away. Maybe it may be the other way around. So we always analyze the entire utterance. And at the end, we do the addressee estimation. And what we did differently from the previous approach is that we took parts of this neural network model and replaced them with something that is more transparent and somewhat inherently explainable. So we can generate some explanations about why the robot thinks that the addressee is who it thinks it is. And so the parts that we replaced are denoted as M1, M2, and M3. So we can generate explanations when we are processing the faces alone, then when we are merging the faces and poses together, and then when we are merging the time frames together. That's the last part where basically we take the entire utterance and squash it together. And so this is what the explanations look like. In the first part, when we are processing the faces, we use a so-called transformer network, which provides these attention maps or importance maps, highlighting which parts of the input images are the most important for the model. Then we also have in real time importance scores of the face information and the pose information, like relatively to each other, which one is currently more important. And then at the end of the utterance, we have the importances for individual time frames. You can see them in the image as the red circles. The larger the circle, the more important the time frame. And then what we also do is that besides just like visualizing these importances, we automatically generate verbal explanation based on the importances of the time frames. And so, for example, you can see in the bottom row, we have large red circles at the beginning. So there is higher importance in the beginning of the utterance. So we can say based on the start of the utterance, the robot thinks that the addressee is on the right. What we did is actually what Omar mentioned, that we also implemented this as part of a larger robotic architecture in robot ICAP, which you can see in the image. And this architecture was basically designed for a human-robot interaction. And this hasn't really been like extensively tested in the real world. But what we did is that we recorded some short videos of the interaction with the robot in like a controlled environment, along with the explanations, which you can see are in the screen like behind the robot. And we showed these recorded videos to some participants in a small pilot user study. And the results were quite promising, like the participants liked the explanations of the robot. And that's it from me. Thank you for your attention.
For the question.
How many sequences did you need or did the robot need to learn?
I don't exactly remember the number of like separate sequences, but it was, I think, 9 or 10 like interactions, like 10 different people like in the videos recorded. So 10 different like situations to learn. It's actually, I probably forgot to mention, it's called the vernissage dataset. You can Google it. There you can find more detailed info. I don't really remember like exact numbers, I'm sorry.
Okay, I am asking because normally in larger tutorials or in transformers, one needs hundreds of thousands examples. So why do you think here it worked so fast? So few examples.
Because we used a very, very, very simple transformer. We basically, well, that's actually, we have like a vision transformer in the processing of faces, and then somehow like a transformer-like attention in the merging of the faces and poses. But yeah, we had to really use like the simplest possible architecture so it could train well.
Yeah, Stefan Pokosch.
Okay, so hello all. My name is Stefan Pocosz, and I'm a postdoc at Comenius University. And today I'm going to talk about robustness of deep neural networks, and with the title of Enhancing Vision Transformer with Top-Down Information Flow. So nowadays we have very successful models, very good performing deep networks that has some flaws, and some of them are the existence of adversarial examples. You can see an image, for example, okay, this is not working, the laser pointing, but you can see the panda on the left side, and it's image which you insert to a neural network, and when it's properly trained, it classifies as well, and everything goes smoothly. But then you can add some perturbation, some very specific targeted perturbation. You can see the noise in the middle, which can create something adversarial. So the image on the right side is not correctly classified by the neural network, and we still see no difference. And that's a problem, actually, because now there is something like that existing. And the thing is that it does not only work for one particular neural network, but you can take any model. You can like take 2 weeks from now and try to train the best model that there is that generalizes well, and I will probably be able to fool it anyway, even though I don't see your model. And so this is the issue. And the thing is that I'm talking now about image classification, but the same thing holds in other domains as well. So I can go to voice recognition, reinforcement learning, and many more. And why is this such a big problem? Isn't it like something artificial and theoretical? Well, not really. It suggests us that the generalization of neural networks is not proper. It's not congruent with what we would like them to behave.
then it means that we cannot really trust these models that much. And for example, when we are making some prediction, how can we be sure that the model is correct and not being fooled when we are doing the inference or something? And then it raises a question that how and when or why could we apply these models in safety critical applications? Because the thing is that we really cannot. Often we cannot do it. And I have some examples from the real world. Like you can see the stop sign, and it was literally like black and white squares painted on the stop sign. And now it behaves like an adversarial, so it's not being detected by the systems. And the question is, would you like to sit in a self-driving car when it's not reliable detecting the stop signs, adversarially perturbed like this? Or there is a second example of turtle, 3D printed turtle, that is misclassified from each angle. And let's imagine that there is some security system in a bank, and so there is possibility to like inverse this. Someone can have a weapon that is misclassified and not classified as weapon, but a turtle or something not malicious. So these things are a problem, and we try to mitigate it somehow. And like this is the experiment procedure we did. So we have two data sets, like benchmark data sets that we used. And first of all, we needed to set our baseline. So some state-of-the-art image classification model. We had some accuracy. And then we created a model that behaves more robustly and is still as accurate as possible. And the main results are here. So in both cases, we managed to achieve like 22 and 18% higher accuracy, higher robustness regarding these adversarial attacks, and the accuracy drop was only 1%. And in our opinion, like it's a fair trade-off. It's not that bad if we like do not have 94%, let's say, but 93% accuracy, but the robustness is higher. So, and how we did it? Well, it was actually that we used one of the state-of-the-art models, the vision transformer, and there is the thing called the class token. The class token contains information about the image after the inference. And what we did is we looped this information so that we could do the classification process all over again. So we do not have like one inference, we do it several times with the information about the suspected output. So you can also see this as an analogy. So imagine that you're outside and you spot a friend across the street. You are just about to wave at him, but then you realize that it's not that friend that you thought it is. So there was something extra, like extra inference, because you were comparing the image of that friend with that person you see. And this is something that is happening also in this neural network. So there is something adversarial in that image, and it has the chance to correct itself. And also, since we now have some recurrent processing, we can play with the image, so we do not have to feed in the same image over again, but we can, for example, blur it, transform it, and so on. And we figured that it actually helped to improve the robustness. And also, we needed to tailor the gradients or the loss function properly, because we were asking, when should the model make the final, or when should it be correct? Should it be correct all the time, or we want to take just the final prediction as the right one? So that was also part of our methodology. And as a bonus, there is this way how to extract the attention scores. Since we are using vision transformer, we can do it easily during the inference. So we can like track how and where is the network focusing on during each time of the classification. Thank you for your attention.
Question? Andy?
Have you some measured how the quality of the classification?
So I think you add more and more this box. So because maybe what you guess so immersive classifiers and what is the difference? What percentage you have the first?
Okay, the thing is that it matters. How do we train the model? But in some cases, because like where do we propagate the gradients from? We can propagate it from the each output, and in those cases, it was usually the case that each prediction was correct. But when we tried to propagate it only from the last one, the first few predictions were not that accurate, because like we let the model do its thing. Like we do not want the first 3 to be accurate, but the 4th one was the right one, and then the accuracy was really high. So it was like we do not ask like CNN to be able to classify somewhere in the middle of the network, like before the output from some internal layer, and we can represent it or think about it that way.
Yeah. Right. Then thanks a lot once more. And next speaker is Miroslav Chibula.
So, hello, my name is Miroslav Cibula, and I would like to present you our research on learning low-level causal relations using a simulated robotic arm, which was created in collaboration with Matthias Kurzel from University of Hamburg and Igor Farkas. So, the problem we are trying to solve here is that, well, you can have very complicated robotic worlds with vast state spaces with many features, and not all features are really relevant for some task you are trying to accomplish. So we want to try to simplify the environment or to facilitate some kind of reasoning about what happens in them. And for that we need to usually uncover some causal relationships which happen in these environments. And the way we do it is we run a simulated robotic arm using and have it perform some pre-programmed procedure to have it explore some causal relationships in the environment. So on the left you can see robotic arm performing some motor babbling, so just generating some random movements and learning how these movements of individual joints affect its end effector. And on the right side you can see the arm playing with some cube and exploring some simple physics. And so we collect these observations of all the action consequences of the robot and have two models, neural forward and inverse model, which learn these relationships from these observations and transform them into some concise representations, similar to what their cognitive analogs do. And then we have these models and use them as some kind of knowledge proxies. So we use explainable AI methods to analyze them and extract these representations, this information about the relationships. So one of the outputs of our method looks like this. It's a heat map. On the y-axis you can see some action features. So we have robotic arm with 7 joints or 7 degrees of freedom, so each action feature corresponds to one joint, or yeah. And on the x-axis, you can see some predefined state features. So, for example, some properties such as location of the object, or its color, or joint configuration, and so on. And our method is able to basically identify which action features influence which state feature. So each cell or each color of each cell corresponds to the strength of the relationship between the action features and state features. So, for example, you can see that in our experiment with the cube, no action feature affects. No action feature affects, for example, the color of the object. And so, if we wanted to somehow simplify the environment and perform some dimensional reduction of its state space, we could remove these three features. Or in the green rectangle, you can see that we are able to uncover some more complex, non-trivial relationships between the actions and the object's rotation and position, which we can further process and get some more information using some different representations of the outputs our method offers. So, to conclude, we implement some causal learning using biologically plausible forward and inverse models. We analyze them using explainable methods to extract some relationships or information about causal relationships between the robot's motor actions and the state features, and we can use this information to either to perform some kind of dimensional reduction or facilitate some more complex reasoning about what happens in the world. That's it. Thank you.
I have the question, is it about world model learning? So typically knowing a state and action, what is the next state?
Yes. So the forward model, as I think you can see here in the top image, is just a multilayer perceptron predicting next state from previous state and action performed in that state. Inverse model basically predicts the action facilitating transition between the time adjacent states. And yeah, so both are multilayer perceptrons.
So you can use that then for planning.
Yeah. In this case, because of how we defined it, we can do only one-step prediction. But in our another research, we are experimenting with more long-term planning.
Yeah, thanks. Is there another question? Or?
What if your state of the world is at the same time influenced by some independent agent, like for example, your robot is planned to be developed, but there's a queen in the room and the block will fall, or
Yeah, that would be a problem. In our experiments, we don't have any other agents. We do basically egocentric learning. So, but yeah, in more complex setting, we would have to somehow account for that as well. So, yeah, this is just some simple, causal learning.
Right. Well, that concludes the second block. Now we're into the final block, block 3 on trustworthiness, and with again 3 speakers, and we welcome Hassan Ali, fresh from Hamburg.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here in Bratislava again. So I'm Hassan, a PhD student in the University of Hamburg, and I'm going to talk about grounding language for action and our LLM integration for the robot bartender scenario. This is work that was done jointly with Lukáš and also our colleague Jan Gerrit, who's not present here today. And I'm also very happy to just say that like a couple of hours ago, we got the notification that our paper was accepted at IROS, which is very nice for Terais as well. So let's start. So this is our Nico robot, which some of you might have seen it. It's basically fixed on a table and has a humanoid head and 2 arms with good manipulation possibilities. And we thought about, let's make a Nicoella bartender. Now, as you can see, it has glasses on top of the table and also some artificial liquids, and it can do stuff like pouring and giving glasses and so on. Now, why we think this is interesting? Basically because this kind of scenario is inherently social. So there is a lot of possibilities for interacting with the user. People like to talk to bartenders, and so they can talk to our robot. There is also, it kind of requires also some additional stuff like maybe some sort of cognitive skills, for example, memory for remembering people and their preferences and so on. And we thought also this could be a good foundation or kind of framework for also evaluating trustworthiness within this robot, since this kind of setup also requires a lot of precise actions and also understanding context within dialogue and so on. The problem that we are trying to solve, or at least one of the problems, the one that I'm going to talk about, is so we have this robot, and it inherently cannot really doesn't have the high-level reasoning which is required for understanding users' requests, intentions, and so on. So we wanted to experiment with language models and see how robust and efficient are they into being some kind of backbone for performing reasoning in these tasks. So basically, we use the language model as kind of a bridge to convert high-level instructions into lower-level physical actions. So for example, if we have some kind of command like pour into this cup, then it would be translated into a set of actions that can be performed by the physical robot. In this study, we basically looked at 3 main things. One is action-object alignment. So we want the robot not only perform an action, but perform something that aligns with the user's expectations. So for example, usually when you serve a drink, you expect it to be served in a certain way or in a given container, for example. And also we looked at different cases of ambiguity and also ordering sequences in different ways, so where the robot would have to understand and consider context as well. This is our architecture for this part, but I won't have time to go in detail. But the main takeaway is basically we have a language model and has access to the robot's actions, so in some sort of procedural memory, what the robot can do basically, and also to multimodal perceptions, so what the robot's environment and its surrounding and its basically interactions with the user as well. And it has also access to different memory components, and these are used mainly because to kind of a way to overcome the limitations in terms of context window and tokens of the language model. So this is our results. So basically we did an end-to-end evaluation with the physical robot. So we gave many instructions, and then we evaluated all the different components, starting from perception into the reasoning and then the action performing. And we did over 100 trials. And we have about 81% accuracy success rate, but of course we have different error sources. So some of them Lucas will tell you about, but what I'm going to mention is the 10% which is related to LLM reasoning, which is good and bad at the same time, because in one way it shows that it is kind of suitable for this kind of scenario, but also leaves a lot of room for improvement, which leads me to our future work. So we're working on different things as continuation of this work. One is we want to improve the performance for sure. Another one is we want to start adapting some ways of user profiles, which can be verbal and non-verbal. So we're going to include personalization in not only what the people do, but actually also how they do and how they prepare different drinks, for example. And this would allow us also to look at different things like long-term engagement with the robot, which can be interesting, especially if we have different user groups like naive users and expert users. And this is all. I'm going to stop here, and I think Lucas also will tell you more about this. Thank you.
Thank you. The error of scaling is because of 3D localization of the glass, or I mean, how the error is defined? Because how you recognize where is the glass and how you solve.
So this will be clear when after the presentation of Lucas, where he shows you the whole pipeline. But basically, we performed all these actions physically with the robot, and we had the spilling could be either that there is some problem with the localization or some problem with the motor actions itself. So that could be either one of those.
And then if we think of localization, it's like
No, so this is exactly what Lucas is going to tell you. So I'm going to leave it to his presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So, Lukasz Gadoszek, next.
So hello everyone, my name is Lukasz and I was also a co-author of this work which was done in collaboration with the University of Hamburg. You can also see all the names of the people involved. And as Hassan mentioned, we got good news about the acceptance of this paper to the IROS conference, but also the preprint version of the paper is available at Archive. You can find it using the name in the parentheses under the name of my presentation. So as Hassan already introduced you to this bartending scenario, and I think this is really kind of a result of our mutual collaboration because I'm coming from a computer vision perspective. And what was interesting for me on this problem is really the visual part. And if you look at these glass objects, they are very interesting from the sense that they are transparent and they cause light scattering and all other kind of physical phenomena. And from a computer vision perspective, this is therefore very interesting to work with because this is usually very hard to detect. So yeah, I think this is the topic is really a result of a mutual kind of conversation, and we find a common ground between something that is very unique and interesting in the social human-robot interaction part, but also from the vision perspective. And also one of the motivating factors was the insufficient performance on these objects of the existing vision models. So we have here some state-of-the-art open vocabulary detectors that are really having trouble with detecting glass objects. And also we have some vision models that are predicting the distance from the camera. And you can see it here that, you know, for example, the wine glass, which was top down, was really predicted as being at the same distance as the glass behind it. So this really shows that these models are having quite a trouble because of the transparency by detecting the geometry of these objects. And yeah, so, you know, on its own, from a computer vision perspective, the detection is enough. But if we look at the broader picture in a human-robot interaction scenario, we want to use it in something interesting. And so these are the kind of scenarios that we wanted to solve, where the user asks for a cup of, for example, beer, and really the robot needs to be able to not only detect the glass, but also to reason about it and, you know, perform some correct action in order to be trustworthy by the user. So how did we actually solve it? How did we improve the existing detectors? So I think the main contribution, or one of the main contributions, is really our novel methodology for data collection. Usually when you're training a deep neural model, you need a lot of data samples. And in these existing object detectors, the training data usually doesn't really contain a lot of transparent objects, or is trained on a synthetic data, and using a synthetic generalization, you know, it's very hard to achieve a very photorealistic glass appearance. So basically what we did is we designed this methodology with the Nico L robot, which was looking around the scene, and we captured each scene in multiple passes. In the final pass, we actually replaced the glass objects by spraying them with chalk spray, which basically make them non-transparent, and therefore they could be observed by standard RGBD cameras. And you know, this is the pipeline of the processing. So the Nico L robot looks around the scene. The aligned data, so basically DebMap's 3D data is aligned with the RGB, and we have used also like a caps placed on the glasses to measure their height. Based on that, we could automatically assign a label to it, and then we have used an existing segmentation neural network to actually finally get a training data in an automated way. So this whole procedure didn't require the user to manually label the data. You only set up the scene, let the robot do its thing, and then change the scene. And in this way, we could actually gather quite a lot of data, and we will actually make it available for the research community. So after training the robot, suddenly Nico L is a bartender. We can see that he, from the vision perspective, he's able to detect the glasses, and this was then connected with the LLM and with the motoric capabilities of the robot, as mentioned by Hassan. And in the end, we are able to perform this bartending scenario. This is the same kind of result graph that Hassan showed. As you can see, for me, the 4.8% is the interesting part, because this is the part that I was responsible for. So the vision part basically fails in up to 5% of the cases. And the data can also be used to other tasks, because we have collected multi-view. There are several cameras. In the end, we're only using the cameras of the right eye of the robot. But in the future, since we are publishing the data set, this can be also used for other computer vision tasks. And we are also publishing like the 3D data of the glasses. And to answer the question about the detection of the 3D poses, this was not done currently. We were only using a 2D detector, and the 3D poses were actually kind of like, let's say, approximated by simple heuristics. But the data is there, so we wish to actually expand on this in the future work and actually do 6 degrees of freedom localization. That's all for me. Thank you.
Would it be possible to use some other methodology like LiDAR to find out what is actually there, these transparent objects, and then the other part to start to prove examples?
Yes, there are other existing methods that we actually cover in our paper that are using, other sensors, or even things like, some sound waves and stuff like this, which can really detect the glass objects. Here we are really focusing on standard RGB, RGBD cameras, which are usually present together with stereo vision in the robot. So we were trying to avoid adding some special sensors, but definitely that would be possible. But as this, in the current form, you only need basically a chalk spray and enough of time to let the robot kind of look around the scene, and you don't need any additional sensor or anything. So that's something we consider to be an advantage of the approach.
The red one to the back.
I would like to ask what kind of pitch basis the industry, for example, touching two glass touching, or for example, say, cups or possible.
Yes, so our idea basically, based on the detection neural network, if there is low confidence in the detection, the robot actually asks the user to manipulate the scene. So we are really using the kind of the opportunity to do this social interaction, right? Because this is a naturally very social environment. So basically, if the robot is unsure because the glasses are touching each other or are something not really visible from the eyes of the robot, he just asks the user like, can you please move the glass or show me again which glass you meant? So we are really doing this, and I think it makes sense, and it kind of solves these edge cases for us.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have too much.
Or should be best for robustness be like lighting issue, because people probably ask a certain kind of quality of lighting, direction of lighting, and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we tried, several, we were also varying the lighting between the scenes. So we try, also you can see this blue kind of a thing on the table. So we were trying to capture these variants in the training data.
Okay. Further questions after the next presentation? We have one more presentation, short one. Michael Wawrejka.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My contribution to iChore's project is pretty simple. I mean, we received the robot that has custom parts, and there were no model, but the requirement was to let the robot control from the user's perspective. That means that the user will define a pick and place, whatever, and the robot has to do this. So how to proceed? First, you need to create a model of the robot. That is tedious job, and then to create a motion planner based on the inverse kinematics or some neural networks, and allow user to control the robot. So my goal was to create a model of the Nico, then to develop the motion planner, also train the reinforcement learning motion primitives. Then we also developed the calibration procedure for sim-to-real transfer and publish it. And then after this, we developed some grasping capabilities for a Nico robot. And our last part, I mean, nowadays is to test these multi-objective reinforcement learning methods to let the robot behave much more in a human way, I mean, receiving multiple rewards during the training. So at the beginning, you start with the model, with your setup, and you are testing what areas are reachable in the 3D space. I mean, the blue stands for where you would like to go, and the red stands for where the robot really reaches. But this is based just on that you are putting the end effector to that position. But the problem is much more difficult because robot also have a singularities, and it has to go to this position. So you also test. So here are small errors, and then you are capable to cover the plane. But if you move to the animated one with all these inconsistencies, you will realize that the error is much more higher. So we did this calculation and find, let's say, the envelope where there is a reachable area or graspable area, whatever, and created the IK solver. So now you can easily define just the XYZ position, and the robot is capable to go to that position. At the next step, we adopted the robotic simulators. Okay, we need to download it and test some grasping capabilities. I mean that the robot is capable to pick the object, put it to the right position. In a simulation, you work with some simplified physics, so you see that the grasping itself is somehow simplified to magnetization. But I mean, the goal is to control the robotic arm based on joint position and allow the robot, to do these high-level tasks based on user definition. When you do have this pre-trained stuff in a simulation, the main problem is so-called sim-to-real problem, because the physical properties of the robot are not matching the simulator very well. There are also some gravity problems and the problems of the, the robotic stuff. So we created, and it was accepted to ICANN conference, the sim-to-real transfer method based on calibration, cheap calibration, without skin, without any expensive tool, just on, you do have a touch screen, and based on touchscreen calibration, you are capable to create the compensation mechanism that will allow you to define the point in the real world, then convert it to the simulator and do some correction method that will precisely position the robotic arm in the real world. Here you see some results. I mean, you see there is a 3 centimeters error in a Z position. This is the upper picture. I mean, so you need to do the compensation in a Z-axis based on inverse kinematic solution. Also, the X and Y error is somehow needs the compensation. So just the simulation and the reality doesn't work. You need to have this correction mechanism to allow the precise manipulation. So this is the paper published together with Juraj Gavura and Igor Farkas. Right now, I mean, as we don't want to have some expensive calibration mechanisms, we are trying to do this also in 3D space based on known points in a robot. So this is so-called self-calibration. So the robot is touching his own body or its own body. And you are calculating the same type of a compensation mechanisms in a 3D. Yeah. So this is work in progress. There's also like a touching the fingers, touching the body parts. Okay. The last part was the development of a the development of a grasping mechanism. So it was, this is the two-hand grasping. Yes, so it's the orchestration of the IK solver and all the neural networks and testing the capabilities. But as the hands are too small for the robot, maybe the Nico L is a better option for this purpose, because these small hands doesn't allow to like precise manipulation with many type of objects, and it also requires a good 3D vision. I mean, if you would like to position it. So this is my contribution to the project, and it's mostly dedicated to help the end user to control easily the robot, and doesn't solve the problems with knowing what are the joint angles or without the compensating the mechanisms. Thank you for your attention.
You think everything was transparent? No question? Oh.
In the previous research, when there was like a blender or when the basic action of the LLM was just involved in these kind of actions, that was
Yeah, that's prepared. I mean, LLM is a very good parser from a high-level command to these primitives. And if you do have these primitives, you can just orchestrate them, or just. I mean, there is so much thing. I mean, if you are ordering the motoric primitives, there are plenty of problems. But basically, yeah, LLM will allow you to having these skills ready and just use them.
there were no way for LLM to like change those primitives in any way as well.
These are VLAs. If you would like to change the primitives, you have to put the action in a training process. This is, I mean, this is pre-trained, or the numerical solution that is ready. But you have to put it into the game, into the action to train it if you would like to work it your way.
Those actions were like a transfer between like different objects and.
Hopefully, but if you, I mean, most of this work is a cherry picking, because you know that there are so much limitation when you transfer to novel environment. Everybody would like to generalize, but everybody in their contribution is showing just the restricted space when it works, and there are all these examples when it doesn't work. Yeah, there is some, yeah, up to some level, and it's work in progress. Everybody would like to have this feature.
Okay, one more applause to all our 8 speakers in the short talk session, and I pass on.